Namaskar, this is Akhilesh Bhargav. Welcome to Tit-Bits on Business and Finance with me. With a much awaited budget turning out to be more an election victory speech by the finance minister and less of a serious fiscal and economic policy statement of the government, and which was very heavy on intent but very light on content, and with the Indian economy languishing, expect a year of a continued downturn in the GDP growth and also a year where India's macro indices are going to deteriorate further. Unfortunately, with the finance minister being in an election mode, which the winning BJP always is, there was not even a recognition of the actual state of affairs of the economy and all that ails it. The reality is that the Indian economy is in a slowdown mode, is in a stress mode, and that has to do with the overall environment also, apart from not adequate policies coming in. The overall environment is one of a global slowdown. It is one of a domestic slowdown which is induced because of poor policy, and it is also one where India's overall engines of growth have been slowing and sputtering. And what are those engines of growth of the Indian economy? Government expenses slow down, private sector investment languishing, the exports not picking up, and even consumer demand now dipping. So all these engines of growth are on a slowdown mode, and there is yet another threat which is there on the horizon. The threat is on two counts. One is we have a rampaging Trump in a China shop, which is going to keep causing global volatility, which will impact India also. And the second is, with the Chinese economy on a 30-year low, its GDP has been going down and down. China is desperately looking for a large market for its goods to continue the growth of its manufacturing sector. And what better a large market than India? So we even have that threat on our horizon. According to us, it's going to be a year of economic stress and slowdown. And here is what we think is on the cards. The first one is interest rate cuts. The government is aware that there has been a slowdown in the economy. It might not admit it in a fulsome manner, but it thinks that it is a monetary policy which could revive the growth in the economy, revive the investment in the economy. And thus, the Reserve Bank has been on an interest rate cut spree. Expect another 50 basis points cuts in the interest rates by the Reserve Bank during the current financial year. But despite this, despite further interest rate cuts, we think there is not going to be any perceptible pickup in credit offtake. Credit offtake by genuine borrowers, by high credibility borrowers, particularly for setting up new projects, is not going to be good, it's going to be poor. And that's because investor sentiment continues to be poor, investor confidence is missing, consumer confidence is missing. And which good ethical borrower would want to borrow under such circumstances? The third issue because of interest rate cuts is going to be an increase in inflation rates. Inflation rates will go northwards. The rates at the moment are at a very comfortable zone, but they will deteriorate. The next prediction, according to us, the NPA crisis will continue. It will continue because the existing NPAs remain unresolved, and more of these NPA-ridden sectors will open up, which to us include the Mudra loans, the Kisan credit cards, those advances and advances given to the MSME sector, which the government has contained so far by permitting RBI to come up with a loose regulation in respect of recognition of NPAs of the MSME sector. So, NPA crisis will continue, and apart from continuing, more of these sectors are going to come into the NPA domain, which include diamonds, which includes real estate, which includes FMCG, which also includes auto components. Despite the government's efforts, there is not going to be any sharp pickup in FDI inflows into India. India desperately needs foreign capital, and the government has made noises that it intends to liberalize the foreign investment regulations for the country. But we still think there is not going to be any great pickup in FDI inflows into the country. MSME stress will continue. In fact, it will get severe, and it will be so severe that a lot of them will prefer to close down silently, unable to carry on the show any further, only because the entire environment of the MSME sector has deteriorated. Because of all these, GDP growth is not going to be smart. Apart from not being in an upward bound mode, growth is going to slow down. It is also going to be patchy quarter after quarter. And because of that, consumer demand is not going to pick up. GST collections are going to be poor. And jobs, much needed jobs will not come by, such that the unemployment situation could only deteriorate further. With GDP not picking up, GST collections and income tax collections will not meet their targets, and they will take the fiscal deficit into a more adverse direction. Stock markets will be bearish. If they will not crash, they will certainly be bearish. Without any strong fundamentals of the economy, without any strong fundamentals of corporates, any rally in stock prices is bound to be a false one, and it will only come back thereafter. So stock markets, as a reflection of the state of the economy and state of the corporates, are going to be bearish. Exports will not pick up. India definitely needs to encourage exports and capture global markets, but with the productivity, the manufacturing productivity and the skill base of India not meeting global standards in order to capture new markets, exports will not take off. India needs a different set of reforms in order to make its export sector buoyant, and those have not come in. And finally, there will be corporate collapses. There will be more corporate frauds coming out in the open, because as we said, not many will be able to continue the show. And with all this happening, Air India disinvestment or Air India privatization will not happen in the way the government is predicting. The government will pump in more money to keep BSNL and MTNL afloat. The disinvestment target will be met, but because of statistical financial jugglery and not because of a true disinvestment. And Vijay Mallya will not come back. Mehul Chokshi will not come back. Nirav Modi will not come back. Sandeep Saras of Sterling Biotech will not come back. And while all this happens, there will be tall promises, poor performance, poor sales, poor liquidity, and finally, doctor's statistic to show all is well. This is Akhilesh Bhargav signing off till we meet again. Namaskar.